No guts, no glory. Whoa, whoa.
Hello ladies and gentlemen and everyone beyond, I am BabyNoobCakes and this is PlayStation Plus Free Game Reviews. And in this episode, we're going to be taking a look at one of the April 2020 free games, Uncharted 4, A Thief's End. And I guess my old series on the Nathan Drake trilogy is about to become a quadrilogy, now that they gave us this game on PlayStation Plus. We're about to close out the end of Nathan's story, and as in the first three, I will not be spoiling the plot, but you might see some scenes from later in the game. But now, let's attempt to answer the question, as one of the free games of the month, was it worth it? Mechanics. Shooting up mercenaries who work for an insane treasure hunter, scaling the walls of ancient ruins, and running his mouth at all the wrong times.
Sorry, boys. I'm not here to negotiate. Bring me the crucifix.
It's not a crucifix.
What?
Well, technically, a crucifix refers to a cross that... You know what? Never mind.
Don't touch it!
Nathan is back with his classic gameplay, with a few new additions and some new tricks up his sleeve. In this fourth installment in the series, in addition to the classic gameplay, you also get the ability to slide and use a grappling hook, which both add a lot of variety to the ways you can move around the map, solve puzzles, and engage your enemies and surprise them. The stealth mechanics from the previous games have also received an overhaul, meaning that you can be more clever in your approach to fighting.
God.
And all of the gunplay mechanics have received a bit of an upgrade, and are a bit more realistic in the recoil effect department. Anyway, what else? Oh, and finally, 4 games into the series, even though Nathan has been in a lot of moving vehicles throughout his career, he finally got around to grabbing his social security card, his proof of residence, went on down to the DMV, stood in line, and got his driver's license, and can drive not only cars, but also a boat in this 4th installment in the series. Art style. The first thing I thought of when playing this game is that it has some of the best and most realistic facial expressions I've ever seen in a video game.
Oh, you gotta be kidding me. I practically had it.
You can give it another shot.
Eat your heart out, Mass Effect Andromeda. But seriously, when compared to other modern games, Uncharted 4 is on the smaller side in terms of playtime length and map size. But that just means the dev team was able to really perfect the character models and the environments, continuing the trends from the previous 3 games of having simply beautiful, realistic-looking locales. And far and away, these are the best in the series. Just look at them. Look at this. Look at that. Ooh wee, look at this one. Holy cow, look at that. And look at this over here.
Well, I guess the test now is...
I don't really have any more words for it. This game is just really pretty. Sound. This time around, Alex Belcher has replaced Greg Edmondson as the composer for this final game in the Nathan Drake saga. In all reality, they probably couldn't have made a better choice for a replacement, because only when I went back and listened really hard to the music could I hear just a very slight difference in compositional technique between the 2 writers. This new composer really understood what the Uncharted series should sound like, and continued in the old composer's footsteps pretty faithfully. I feel like a bit of a broken record, but the voice cast has once again returned and given stellar performances, just like always.
The only time you pull a stunt like this is when you're trying to make up for something.
You are too smart for your own good, you know that? Alright.
So,
pirate walks into a bar.
Okay, here we go.
And he's got the steering wheel sticking out of his crotch.
All right.
So the bartender goes, "Hey, man, what's with the wheel?" And the pirate says back, "Arr, it's driving me nuts." Check this out.
St. Dismas. We meet again.
So, what do we got?
More sigils.
Jesus, you guys act like you never spend time in prison. If you want something dirty done, then you wait for lights out.
Yeah.
Where's that electrical panel for this place?
Replayability. A Thief's End will last you about 15 to 18 hours, which is double the longest game from the original trilogy. There is a lot more to do this time around. There are the collectible treasures returning from the first 3 games. And because this time around the maps are a whole lot larger and less linear than the first 3 games, you'll have to do a lot more work to track them all down. Also returning are the multiple difficulty levels to progress through. But once again, the story is pretty static in its progression, meaning that there's really only one ending. Something that I've mentioned already that deserves to be talked about more is the fact that in this final installment in the series, the maps aren't as linear and aren't just one big corridor leading from point A to point B. Well, I mean, they kinda are. There is just a lot more to do and a lot more you can miss if you just go straight forward. So take some time, smell the roses, and nab yourself some collectibles. Included in these collectibles is also a bit of a change from the previous Uncharted games in that you actually need to find points of interest in order to add them to your journal. Unlike in previous games where your journal would just fill up automatically as you hit each of the story beats. This doesn't mean that the entirety of the journal stays empty if you don't explore. The major plot points will get automatically added to the journal, but there are plenty of pieces of lore that you can miss along the way if you're not thorough in your investigations. Narrative. Nathan teams up with his long-lost brother, Sam, and you really get to explore a lot of the previously untold portions of Nathan's past as both a child and the adventures he went on prior to the start of the first game in the series. At the beginning of the story, we find Nathan Drake living a very pedestrian life, married to Elena and working for a legitimate business. Of course, he very quickly finds himself getting right back into tomb raiding and off on another globe-trotting adventure. Now with his brother Sam,
Sure about this?
Sully, and eventually Elena again. This time you are after lost pirate treasure, one that you've actually known about since you were a kid. Both you and your brother Sam knew that your mother was working on attempting to find it herself before her unfortunate passing, and you play out some of the younger portions of Nathan Drake's life during the times when you begin to follow in your mother's footsteps. However, this once again ties into the middle portions of Nathan Drake's life you also get to play through, as you meet this game's antagonist, Rafe, who was actually an old business partner of both Nathan and Sam, until Sam was lost during one of your valiant escapes. He has also been searching for this treasure for the past 15 years, and will pretty much do anything to get his hands on it.
In here. But if you think about bidding on Avery's Cross, I can tell you exactly how you're going to be leaving in a goddamn
Rafe.
fight.
My opinion. Y'all better buckle up for this one. My feelings after playing this game are so bittersweet. So let's start with the sweet. This game is a great send-off for Nathan Drake, a way to end his story, to tie up loose ends, and provide some closure on the exciting parts of Nathan Drake's life. It really makes him feel more like a living being, since he is getting older in this game, and it doesn't really seem like this tomb raiding lifestyle is a good fit for him anymore.
There's Vargas.
Which is sort of a reflection of how Naughty Dog, the developers, have expressed that they were wanting to leave this series behind them now, since they've said about all they wanted to say with it. Which is kind of a rarity in today's gaming market, that the developers themselves got to choose when to end a series, rather than just remake the same game year after year. And the last thing I want to say before getting off onto the more negative portion of this video is that I did have a lot of fun playing this game. I did. I truly did. But, and you knew that there was a but coming, but, now for the bitter part of my bittersweet feeling. And I actually feel a little bit hypocritical about what I have to say here, but here goes. In previous reviews, I've criticized these games for trying to have stealth when the stealth mechanics were not fleshed out and didn't work very well. Now, the stealth abilities are a lot better this time around, but they slow down the pacing of the game to a crawl. This is mainly because the shooting is just as frustrating as it's been in previous games, where enemies never miss, there are still the enemies with way too much health that are just bullet sponges, they spawn in from unseen locations, and this time around, they move around too much. Every time you hit one with a bullet, it causes them to flinch out of the way of your next bullet. They also have better AI, but that means they like to be constantly moving, and I can never line up a shot. And since this game added in the more realistic recoil, What this all means is that at least for me, I wound up trying to clear entire rooms using stealth because a lot of the combats just feel like trial and error, because you can never tell where you're going to be safe enough to survive through the combat. So I never bothered taking enemies head on unless I absolutely had to. Do you think I'm a hypocrite yet? Well, maybe this will change your mind. Because another complaint I had about the first 3 games was that they were a bit linear, which was never a huge problem with them. It was just an aspect of the games I wanted to talk about because they were so incredibly linear. In A Thief's End, they've remedied this by adding a lot more options for when you're climbing across rooftops, when you're driving around the wilds of Madagascar, when you're driving your boat around a string of tiny islands, when you're exploring ruins, when you're over here, when you're over there, and here, and 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 there. Which means it slows down the pacing of the game once again. It gives it the feeling that this world is a bit more lived in. And I asked for this. I asked for it in my previous reviews, and I'm sure a lot of other people wanted a more fleshed out world they could actually explore a bit more, and that's what we got. But now, I don't know if I want it. And yes, this does make me a hypocrite, but after seeing what it does to the overall continuity of the game, I want to go back to the fast progression and linear corridors of the past. Because if you decide to explore, it stops all the forward momentum the game has. And if you decide to ignore it, I ended up with that feeling of missing out on a lot of potentially cool stuff. I also wasn't a huge fan of Sam at the beginning of the game, and I felt like he was almost an escort mission during the first few chapters you spend with him. More than once I found myself having to wait for him to catch up, only to jump in front of me once he got there. Or having to wait for him to open up the next part of the level for me, and he didn't seem to have any sense of urgency while doing it. Which might just be my impatience showing, but he came to Nathan with a problem and asked for his help. And then he was an asshole about it, while Nathan was putting his life on the line for him, in more than one way. Not only his, being alive life, but his way of life. I'll get to that in a second. Hold on. But who knows, though? You may have loved him from the beginning. And I did come around to his side and begin to like him, but it wasn't until about 75% of the way through the game, when he and Nathan have a bit of a heart-to-heart chat, that I finally started to like him. But going back to what I said before, speaking of Nathan and his life, he spends a huge portion of the game being very stupid, even for him. When he leaves on this adventure with his brother, he lies to his wife, Elena, who has been on 3 of these adventures with him already. And even though they appear to have given up on the life of being thieves, Nathan has screwed up his relationship with her in the past, but he decides to do it again and lie to her. And he goes off with his brother to possible death in a foreign country without even letting her know where he's going. I mean, he He is dumb most of the time. Nathan Drake is not very smart. But this is a new level of dumb. And even though he does this, it ends up putting him through a lot of character development, and it is really interesting and makes for a great story. But I felt it was a little unnecessary and could have been handled a bit differently and still been just as impactful. Was it worth it? I know I'm complaining a lot about this game, but it's because of the love I have for this series, and partially because of the expectations that I had for it. This game is double the length of any one of the 3 that preceded it, but that makes it lose the action movie feel that those had. I did enjoy it, I really did, but instead of feeling like a high-octane action movie, this game felt more like a Netflix drama miniseries with some action scenes added on. I don't regret playing it in the slightest, but I think it's hard to recommend it to people who liked the first 3 Uncharted games for what they were. But it's unfair to judge something for what it isn't. I enjoyed my time with Uncharted 4, and I'm glad I hadn't picked it up yet, because now I have it for free. And even though I didn't try the online mode, that's not why I like these games anyway. I know there are a lot of you out there who will only show up for the multiplayer modes in games, and some other people who enjoy both. And if the single-player gunplay is any indication of the online experience, the addition of the new traversal mechanics is sure to make it a super fun time. But as far as the single-player campaign goes, I think this one is still worth it, even after all my complaints. But maybe that's for you to decide. Whether you agree or disagree with my judgment, get at me in the comments. Let me know what you think, and let's discuss if this month's games were worth it or not. Also, don't forget to go to the PlayStation Store and download your free games every month, because hey, they're free, and sometimes you will end up with a few gems. Once again, thank you for watching. If you liked the video, go ahead and leave a comment, a like, or subscribe. And I'll catch you later.